Hi, this video is intended to show you how you can get the most out of Retribution in raiding with a few add-ons and a number of macros. Now before I start, the three add-ons I'm going to show you, two of them, they're not necessarily my recommendations, they are what I use. I'll show you how I use them, then you can decide for yourself. One add-on that you will be told about, if you haven't already, is weak auras. I don't cover weak auras. Now here's the thing about it. It's great. It's an absolutely great add-on. I'm not going to argue with that. If you know how to construct your own weak auras for a variety of situations, it is absolutely brilliant, and a number of people do that. The issue is, if you don't really know how to construct your own other than a few basic ones, I don't think it's all that brilliant, because sure, you can get weak aura strings from other people that have made it for themselves, but it makes you very poor at adapting. If Blizzard suddenly announces, as they do, changes to Retribution or the way any of your abilities work. I mean, think about it. Since 6.2 came out, what have we had changed? We've had our trinkets changed. We've had our abilities changed. We've, you know, the talents we use on certain bosses have changed a little bit as we've gone through, as we've geared up. Are you able to keep your weak auras up to date, or are you reliant on someone else updating theirs and then making them public, or at least sending them to you so you can update yours? If the answer is no, I would think of something else. This is what I did. I need to be in control of my UI, so I need to use add-ons that I can use myself. Yes, sure, I could learn how to do weak auras, but it would take quite a bit of time, and I'm, you know, although I've got time to do videos and raiding, I do have a job as well, and I'm quite busy with that. So it's not something for me, and it may not be something for you as well. So the add-ons I'm going to go over are Tell Me When, which is a tracking add-on, Hekili, which is a rotation add-on, and Clique, which is a mouse over macro add-on. Okay, so I'll show you how I use them, and then you can decide for yourself. Tell Me When is an add-on for tracking. Tracking your cooldowns, tracking debuffs, tracking buffs, tracking whatever you want to do. If we put /tmw, we can see the things I'm tracking at the moment. Up to you how you lay them out. Down this side I've got most of my cooldowns. We'll have a look at these first. Spell cooldowns are the easiest ones to look at. So if, for example, we look at Divine Protection, I can see this one I don't have there. Drop down menu, you can say what sort of thing you want to track. So this is a simple spell cooldown. I just want to know when Divine Protection is available for my use. Now you'll notice I've got it ticked for both usable and unusable. What I can do is, by ticking the show timer and timer text and show LView timer text, what that means is when it's been used and it's not available anymore, I can still track how long there is left to go until it is usable. One last thing before I show you how that works. There's a few other tabs down here. Conditions is one I always go to. Every one of these has this condition at the very least. Unit, you go unit attributes, unit in combat, player, true. What that basically means is these things will only show when I'm in combat. I don't really need them showing when I'm just running around or studying my garrison or anything like that. It would just be distracting. They're useful in combat, so I only have them showing in combat. So all my tell me when, have that condition. Now, if I get myself into combat, just to show you a few things here, and then I use Divine Protection, you can see it's counting down to when it is available again. Okay, so but it's still visible there. Avenging Wrath, I'm going to show you a few things on this one. Again, I've got a simple spell cooldown thing, usable and unusable, with the timer ticked off there so that it's telling me how long there is to go until it is available again. And again, conditions only in combat. But there's a few more things with the when you've got the tier 18 bonus, there's something else to track. For the first 10 seconds you get a stacking buff to your damage, and I'm tracking that here. So this time I'm tracking a buff, buff stroke debuff, in this case it's a buff. Now I want and I want this for everything I track, the spell ID. Now when I had to find Avenging Wrath, the spell ID is quite easy. I just go down here and I read off the spell ID. There, it says 31884. Now, for a buff something like this, you could put in the name of the buff, but sometimes there's a few different spell IDs for it. The best thing to do in that situation is to get yourself into combat, give yourself the buff, and then hover over. So I'm just going to show you how to do that. I'm in combat. I'm using Avenging Wrath. So now you can see I'm getting these stacks, and I can read off the spell ID 185647. Okay. Just going to disengage there. The other thing to note about Tell Me When is you can't use it. You can't open this thing out into combat. So I have to wait till I'm out of combat before I can amend it. So that's the spell ID that goes in there. It's a buff, tick off buff. Only cast on me. I don't want to track anyone else's. Only when present. I don't need to have this shown when absent. It's of no interest to me whatsoever. So there's no point in ticking that. I just need to tick the counts. Same thing again though. Unit in combat, player true. That's the case for all of them. So I'll show you how to make something similar to that now. Now, I'm just going to close that off. I got the Gore Fiend trinket recently. This gives you a stacking buff as well. It's a bit unreliable though. But I need to now set up Tell Me When so that I can track it. So the first thing I need to do is to know what is the spell ID of the Hungering Blows I get from it. So all I do is I'll just go into combat and wait for it to proc. This is a terrible trinket, it takes a while. So there we go, it's proc 183941. So I'm just going to note that down. Okay, get myself out of combat. When these have disappeared, because these are all conditional upon being in combat, when they've disappeared, I know I'm out of combat and I can open this up. I've got myself a little space there, which I'm just going to click on buff, debuff. I've got the spell ID 183941, Hungering Blows. Tick that. Only cast by me again, I only want it if I've got it. Not interested if it's absent. Show timer, text, show LV timer. Again, set it up. Unit attributes, unit in combat, and I'm the unit player. So then that should work. Another thing you can do, I'll just show you here. These two icons here, which you'll see got a stop clock, because they don't mean anything for me at the moment. They're there for, you would have noticed if you looked at the beginner's guide, when I use empowered seals, these track my Murad and Leandra buffs, but I don't use empowered seals on any fight, so I don't absolutely need them. Keep them there just in case anything changes, but I could decide I could shove those out to the side. I'll move this across here, so you, oops, I'm moving the old bar, behave yourself. So what you can do is you can right click and drag it over here, and it'll give you an option to copy it here or swap with, so I'll just swap it with that. Okay, and I'm just going to show this again now. Hopefully what will happen is when it triggers, who knows when that will be. This is one of the reasons I don't like this trinket. It is very unreliable. I don't know any good jokes in space, we're just going to have to wait this one out. Or maybe I'll speed it up for you. Aha! Triggered! So you can see, I was looking up there, it's triggered up there, but it's also tracking it down here for me with a timer on it, so I know how long it's got left. I can also see how many stacks it's got up to. It's not necessarily actually hugely relevant, this particular one, because I can't control when it goes off, but it's just nice to know. So other things I can track, I track my interrupt and my stun so that I know when they're available. This is more for when we had Devotion Aura, but it still tracks when I've got it on me. I'll show you on this one. This shows when I've got Devotion Aura on me, but it's not got only cast by me ticked on it, because that would be foolish, because I never cast it on myself anymore, because I don't have it. These two are conditional ones, condition icons. I use these to let me know when I'm in each seal. I had a bit of an accident on the first Imperator Margok mythic kill when I realised I was in Seal of the Righteous at times when I should have been Seal of Truth. So I just have these to show when I'm each in those seals without having to look down here, which I'm never really going to do. So condition icon, condition succeeded, and then the actual conditions is, it's just one of your options here. I'm trying to remember which one it's in now. There it is, player attributes, tick on the seal, and then, oops, oh dear me, player attributes, seal, and then the name of the seal that you want to be true. Okay, there, and I've got one for each so that I can see when I'm in there. So if I, in fact, I don't even need to press slash tell me when. If I just go into combat, it'll disappear. You can see I'm in truth. If I switch to righteousness, that one lights up. So it's nice. It's in my main view. This is my main view when I'm raiding. So things in here I can see. I've also got one Forsaken Shield. Forsaken Shield there, as you'll notice. Okay. So just to give you a general overview of the things I like to track, I'll go through each one. So down this side I've got execution sentence. Again, I want to know when that is going to be available for me so that I can plan. Alright, I can plan my use of my other cooldowns and my positioning, especially when using Seraphim. Legendary Ring, just to track how long's to go on that. Unfortunately, they don't let Retribution Paladins, a lot of guilds, including mine, handle the Legendary Ring, even though we're the best to use it. But still, you can see how long it's got to go if you were using it. Avenging Wrath, of course. Hand of Sacrifice. If a tank asks for a Hand of Sacrifice and yours is on cooldown, it's all right saying, well, I don't have it. But if in like 2 seconds you have it, you can just say 2 seconds. That might still be okay. Divine Protection, Divine Shield down this side. Along here, I track Empowered Divine Storm. Now, although with a Rotation Helper or Weak Auras, you might think, well, what do I need that for? Again, you don't want to just follow any rotation helper like Hekili or CLC Ret or even a set of weak orders blindly. You need to be aware of what you've got available to decide when to use it. So Empowered Divine Storm, I track my Wings of Liberty from my 4-set tier 18. Seraphim, this is just the cooldown. I could track the Seraphim buff itself. The reason I don't is I don't need 2 because I know that when the cooldown is between 30 seconds and 15 seconds it's up, and when it gets to 15 seconds I know it's gone and I'm just counting down till I can use it again. Tracking Avenging Wrath, so that I know that I've got Avenging Wrath up. This is particularly useful because when it gets to very close to finishing I want to try and sneak out an extra Hammer of Wrath if I can. So that sometimes affects my decision making on which ability to use. Exorcism. Why track Exorcism? There is almost always a good reason, and there has been ever since Throne of Thunder, I would say, to track Exorcism. In this particular case, it's mostly for an AoE situation. As I said in the previous video, if you have got an AoE situation where you've got multiple mobs in melee range of you, and you have Glyph of Mass Exorcism, Exorcism becomes higher priority than Judgment. So what I can do is, when I'm being told, or when I would normally use Judgment, but I know that I've got Exorcism available, I will probably use that instead if there are lots of mobs around me, because it does more damage. I forget what that's tracking. Divine Purpose, oh that's right, I have to use that for a while. Yeah, that was more for Blackrock Foundry when we had our tier 17 bonuses, and we want to know, so that we don't waste a Divine Purpose proc. If there's only a couple of seconds left to go, then use it. So you don't lose it. This is just an icon. This is to do with the class trinket, the Libram of Vindication. I've done a separate video on that. It's just something to flash up. If this thing's about to wear off, it flashes up and tells me, use your Crusader Strike, because I'm about to wear off. So that's just that. These are just the Hekili add-ons there. This is tracking a Final Verdict buff when I have Final Verdict, so that I can properly weave Final Verdict and Divine Storm, or know when best to use my Empowered Divine Storm. This is telling me when the Legendary Ring is active. This is tracking my stacks of the class trinket, Libram of Vindication. You've just seen me set this one up, that's the Hungering Blows for the Gorfian trinket, and these two are for Empowered Seals. You will have seen that when I demonstrated empowered seals on the beginner's guide. The 2 seals I've already mentioned. Sacred Shield, it's duplicated really, I could get rid of one of those, but I don't care, it's nice and in my face. Righteous Fury, occasionally I am required to have Righteous Fury on, not really in Hellfire Citadel, but as Retribution that is. It's just there to remind me I have it, so that at times when I shouldn't have it, which is like almost always, I go, oh, I've got it on, and I can take it off. And these are the ones that, like here, these are fight specific debuffs that I created. Now, notification for this one is for Korag, I seem to remember. Now I'll show you what else you can do here. If there's a debuff that when you get it, you need to be instantly alerted to it, could be a standing in fire job or just getting a debuff. I mean, your boss mods might well tell you, Big Wigs is what I use, or DBM, might well sound off a huge siren saying, you have this thing, you need to do something. But let's say it doesn't. You can create your own here. So the usual things, spell ID, blah, 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 blah. But then there's this extra tab here, notifications you can put in. So what you can do is on show, when this tell me when shows itself, you can choose a sound, a very distinctive sound that you won't confuse with anything else. And when you hear that sound, it's just an audio thing. It's sometimes better than just visual on its own, saying something bad has happened, or something needs your attention. And that helps you sort that out. So that's how I use Tell Me When. That's how you can use Tell Me When. So give that a go if indeed you decide that this is the thing for you. Okay, so this is going to show you how to use the add-on Hekili. Now, when it comes to rotation helpers, you've got the main ones, Hekili, CLC Ret, or weak auras, if you're good at setting up weak auras. I'm going to go through Hekili, which is the popular one at the moment. The benefit of this is, unlike CLC Ret, you don't have to keep changing your strings. It's updated quite quickly. The support's very good. And as I say, it switches from spec to spec and from talent to talent without you having to amend it as such, once you've set it up to your to the way you want it. Now, it's very important you have something as Retribution. You do get players, particularly of other classes, looking down on you for this. But the bottom line is, we have a lot of abilities in our just our basic rotation. There's a lot of abilities, and they are fired off very quickly. We're not like a rogue, for example, who has to wait for a build-up of energy or something like that. We are fast and furious with it, and every second's delay is costing us damage. We can't do that. When we're using an ability, we need to know what we're going to use next at that time. We need to know immediately. And this is quite good for that. You'll notice I've got this set. You can have this set up for further back. I've got it set up to show me which ability I need to use now and what would be the next 2 abilities I'm using. It's still, I've mentioned this before, but it's really important to bear in mind. It's very important that you understand the rotation still, because although following this will do you well enough, there are certain situations when you need to break it slightly. By understanding the rotation yourself, you will understand when you need to do that and why. And if you want some help on that, I've got a couple of guides out. Depending on what level you feel you're at, you can either check out my beginner's guide or my intermediate guide on Retribution Paladins. Now, I'll just show you how to set this up first of all. So, /Hekili. Welcome there. General. A few things to note in here. The clash. What this is for is if you've got 2 cooldowns, two abilities that might be available for use next. So it might tell you, for example, that you're going to use Judgment next because that's ready and willing to be used. But Crusader Strike is coming off cooldown, and actually when you need to use it, give or take a 1/10 or 2/10 of a second, you might be able to use Crusader Strike, which is a higher priority ability. So you just set yourself a little clash timer that assumes the cooldown is shorter by this amount to tell you what to use. So I have mine set at 0.25. You can vary this and see what works best for you. I'm not going to worry too much about the target count. It's more for people. This add-on tries to help people use their AoE abilities when there's AoE on. I prefer for it not to do that. What I want to do, if I usually have it set to 5, I don't like it set to 4. What I usually do is just make sure that I know how many mobs are around me, and I use my abilities accordingly. I don't want the add-on to help me with that particular one. This is just for updates. Obviously, the faster it can update, the more accurately it can tell you which abilities you'll be using next. Sometimes you might find that you see the next 2 abilities you're going to use, and then it'll change really quickly. So the more updates per second you can do, the better. But obviously, processor speed and all that, you don't want too many that it'll slow your game down. I have it set on 15. I think 10 is the standard. Onto toggles. I want most of these unticked. I want interrupts unticked. The problem with this is if you have show interrupt showing, every time there is an interruptible cast on your target, it will put the rebuke icon there, and it's very annoying. And I don't need it, I know. And especially, like, you don't always want to interrupt it anyway. Sometimes you're saving your interrupt for a particular cast. Some casts you can let go through, or it's someone else's problem. Or you might be part of an interrupt rotation. So it's really important not to have that ticked. If you're going to use these guides at all, this is, you know, don't have that ticked. I don't have show potions ticked. I know how to manage my own potions. I don't have show cooldowns ticked because I don't want this add-on to track them. I track them with tell me when, which I've already explained about. This up here is just for like problem solving, so ignore that completely. And I have this set to manual and then single target, again because I do not want the add-on switch into an AoE mode when it thinks I should be AoEing. I can manage that myself. Class settings, I don't want the tier 90 talents ticked. I don't want those as part of the rotation. I don't want it telling me to use execution sentence when it's off cooldown because I may have to delay it for something else. Alright, I manage that again. I track the cooldown for that on tell me when. This is more for protection Paladin, so I'm not worried about that. Clashes, I don't really have clashes here, I don't care about them. Apart from for Hammer of Wrath, I do want to make sure I can get that last Hammer of Wrath out before my Avenging Wrath expires, so I put a 0.3 second clash on that. But other than that, I don't really do anything. The mitigation, again, irrelevant, not doing that. Protection, not interested. Notifications untick, I don't need notifications showing. I track them elsewhere. Again, some of these you might tick if you wanted to try just using this and you didn't want to use weak auras or tell me when to track other things. But I would strongly recommend that you do track them using another add-on, so I untick that. In terms of the displays, let's get rid of that. Rep primary I have enabled. Show with target, I don't have it showing always. I don't need it in the middle of my screen all the time. So it's when I've got a target, when I'm in combat. So if I close it down just for now, I've got a target. I'm not in combat, but I've got a target, so it's showing there. Okay, so I'm just going to go back into that. PvP, same sort of thing, although I never PvP, so I don't really need that. So I can close that one. AoE, not enabled. Same thing there. I have that enabled, but not that. I don't care about that. That's less important though. But I don't have the AoE enabled because I don't need it to be enabled. I can manage that myself. Action lists. So, say for the ret single target, if there are anything in here you didn't want it telling you to use because you wanted to hold off on it, or you wanted to track it somewhere else and use it like that, then again you could remove it from here. You can just delete it from here. Alright, I've already pruned it a little bit to get rid of a few things. And just go down these, go down each of these. If there's anything that you don't want it showing you, again you can tick not enabled. Alright, so pre-combat, for example, if you didn't want that showing, you can tick not. I pay no attention to it pre-combat because I know what I'm doing when I go into combat anyway. So that's how we use Hekili, and as I say, you can see it shows you nice and easily. In most situations you can see what you're going to use it, so I know after Judgment I'm going to use Seraphim. Because Seraphim is off the global cooldown, I know I can use it immediately that I use Judgment. I don't have to wait, because it's showing you the global cooldown here with this wipe here. I know that with Seraphim I don't have to, I'll show you when it comes around again. I don't have to wait for that to finish before I use the next one. Okay, just a little thing. You'll notice that people here do, I mean, you can probably hear my keystrokes. I'm bamming the hell out of it so that it fires off as soon as I use it. So I know after this Judgment, Seraphim straight away. I don't wait for that wipe to come round. Okay, and that's how we use it there. That's nice and straightforward. And when I use Avenging Wrath, it's putting Hammer of Wrath automatically in. It automatically knows I've got Hammer of Wrath available. So it's doing that as well. Okay, so it's a nice one to use. Make sure you've got it set up in your normal line so that you can see it without funneling it, without focusing it. Okay, and there we go for that. So what I would do at this point, because I don't have these things shown, if I knew that I was in an AoE situation now, I'll just show you a couple of things. Hammer of the Wrath. So instead of Crusader Strike, I'd use Hammer of the Righteous. Instead of Judgment, I'd use Exorcism, because I knew I had that available. And if there's lots of mobs around me and I've got Glyph of Mass Exorcism, then I know it's going to do more damage. So hence the reason to interweave multiple add-ons together. So I use Tell Me When and Hekili in terms of my general rotation. Okay. Okay, so the third and final add-on specifically for me playing Retribution that I use is Clique. Clique really is, oh dear, a healing add-on. It gives you the ability to use mouse off overs for certain spells while having another target selected. But it's also useful for Retribution. Now a lot of these are healing spells for the Holy Spec, but some down here that are very useful for Retribution are Hand of Sacrifice, Hand of Protection, Rebuke particularly. There are other ones as well that could be useful every now and then, but these ones are especially useful. Hand of Sacrifice is a very powerful cooldown we have for single people. Most often used on tanks. Now when it's used on tanks, of course, ideally what you'd want to do is macro onto the tank, but I'll go over that when we talk about macros after this. But there might be times when other people in the raid need it, where they're taking a heavy damage and they want your sack. So I've got my Death Knight here on my other account to join me in a rather sad and pathetic raid group here. And I've got it bound to G. So what I can do, I'm obviously targeting the dummy here. I can be doing my normal DPS rotation, no problem. All I have to do is move my mouse over the person I want to sack. I don't have to click them. You'll notice I'm still targeting the dummy. Just press that key and they get the Blessing of Sacrifice there. Okay, which I'm tracking down there as well, but I'm not really bothered about that. I give it in when they ask. It's up to them how long it lasts then. I can do the same sort of thing with other things. I could do it with, say, Blessing of Freedom. I can do it with Hand of Protection. This is only to be used on Gnome, Rogues and Warriors in Execute phase, of course. But every now and then someone else asks for a Hand of Protection, so they can have that then. For interrupts, I can't really show that here. But let's say you're in a group here and you're targeting this one, but then the mob next to you is doing a cast that you need to interrupt. You can hover over that mob, and by pressing your interrupt macro, obviously I've just interrupted that because there isn't one next to me, you'll be able to interrupt something that is not your target. So I would definitely give Clique a look out. It's really good for this sort of thing, and will improve your ability to use your hands and interrupts and even stuns when necessary immeasurably. Okay, so here we're going to have a look at macros. Now some of the macros I use, you see I've got quite a lot. Not all of these are ones I'm using currently at the time. Avenging Wrath sometimes wants to be lined up with something else. Now at the moment with me using Seraphim on single target, I want Avenging Wrath to go for at the same time as Seraphim where possible. On the pull I can't always, because my red group is now using Legendary Rings and that shifts the priority slightly. But nonetheless, in general terms, I want to make sure Seraphim is available before I use Avenging Wrath, so I have those macro together. If Seraphim isn't available, it's no big deal. This will still work, it just won't cast Seraphim, it's fine. No problem. Crusader Strike, I have two for Crusader Strike. I have this one for when I'm using the Libram Vindication, but might have to target swap. What this one does will mean that as long as I am still in melee range of my focus target, in line with the video I did on Libram Vindication, and I'm facing it, my Crusader Strike will automatically hit that focus target, so I won't lose my stacks of Libram Vindication. Then I have another one, this is my more general use Crusader Strike one. What this basically does is it just means that if you're hitting something, maybe an ad, and it dies, that you don't waste your time trying to hit a corpse. You'll just move to the next one. You'll just, you know, the next ad there without you having to worry about target switching. An actual focus macro, the thing with the Libram Vindication is sometimes your focus changes in the fight. So for example on Council or even Gore Fiend when you're inside the belly, things like that. You might want to change your focus. So I have that bound there. It's just a simple /focus macro. Don't think I used that now. Interrupt macros. If you need to say something or whisper someone because you're part of an interrupt rotation, you might want to bind. You might want to have a macro for interrupt that automatically says something or whispers someone. Judgment, very much the same as the original Crusader Strike. It's just so that if you use Judgment just as something dies, you're not trying to waste your damage on a corpse. It's not going to do anything. It won't work. You're just wasting damage. So it automatically targets the next add in range. Sacrifices specifically for the 2 tanks. Now I mentioned this before. Tanks are the most obvious recipients of your Hand of Sacrifice, so it helps just to have a macro specifically for them. It will target them without changing the target. You notice the /cast in brackets at the name of the tank will mean that it will cast Sacrifice on them, but without changing your target. So you can still carry on with your normal rotation. That's a duplicate, actually. Don't know what I've got that there for. Stun. Sometimes you need to stun specific mobs. This was a long time ago. This was in High Mall on I forgot the name of the boss. Tectus, that's the one. Where the Knights Twisted Earthwarpers needed stunning. They had a particular cast that was very, very nasty on Mythic, and you couldn't interrupt it, but you could stun it. But it wouldn't be my primary target. So what I would do is I would keep an eye on their cast bar, and when it was getting towards the business end of this cast, I would just hit this again. In this particular one, it did actually target them because I'd want to finish them off once I'd got the stun off before they cast another one. All right, but in theory, you could do the same thing where it casts it at them without you having to switch targets if that's what if you didn't want to do that. So my general ones. Sometimes specific people want a Hand of Protection. Sometimes it can be the tank on Gruul, for example, or on Tectus again. There's another classic case where you wanted a couple of healers bopped for the very end phase. So I just create macros with those people's specific names in it if I need to know that. Alternatively, I could just use Clique if it's an ad hoc basis. There. Extra action button, mouse over thing for Iskar, although there is an add-on that makes that a lot better. Those are the main add-ons I use for macros. Sorry, that I use for Retribution. Okay, so that's it for the main add-ons and macros to be able to play Retribution. I'm going to do a video on general raiding add-ons that is not class or spec specific as well after this. See you later.